Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. So it's a day after Christmas, and yesterday after dinner, I came down here and I started with a little thing, and then it led to another thing, and before you know it, I was like doing a lot, and I stayed down here for quite a bit of time, probably like 1:30 in the morning. So I got a lot done, and I do apologize once again. I didn't make any kind of like instructional videos because I get into a groove, and then I don't feel like putting everything down just to pick up my camera, then figure out how I'm gonna present everything and how I'm going to teach it, and then I gotta wait, and then some things I'm not sure about, so I don't even know how to teach it because I don't even know how to do it myself. So, anyways, I get caught up in that often. So what I am gonna do is just explain what I did to get to this point. Obviously, you've seen the other videos already, so I'm going to explain this part that that I'm working on now. So the first thing that probably sticks out is the white water right here. So it's not really white; it's just that it's drying. I did go ahead and pick up the GAC 500. I know I showed you the 200, but the 500 is what I used on the old scene, and that stuff is a little bit thicker than the two, but it still kind of flows a little bit. And this originally scared the what out of me because I did the entire scene here in one shot. I just kind of like poured it on there. I didn't like manipulate it at all, and that's what ended up happening after a couple of days. So at first it was cloudy like this, and I was like, oh man, this is never gonna dry, but it ended up drying beautifully. So I'm not worried about this, especially considering that it's a smaller area and it's not as thick as that. Not intentionally. Actually, I tried to match the thickness, but obviously when things dry, they tend to get shallower. They tend to condense a little bit. So I'm gonna go back once this is completely dry. I'm gonna go back and hit it one more time and try to match the level of that water. I don't know if you can see, but it's hard to tell. It's a little under. So I think with another coat, it's gonna do the trick. And then, the paint underneath is pretty much kind of like what I did here, so it should blend nicely. One thing I did notice, though, is that when I was pouring the GAC, at first I was being very careful not to go into the old stuff, but I was like, you know what, let me just try it, like I do things, just kind of jump in. So I ended up like pushing it over the lip and actually making random like wavy I guess shapes so it would blend since it's so like bumpy anyway, and it actually blended in just perfectly. You can't see like any seams or anything like that. So I think once I get this to the right level and then just kind of like push it into the old scene a little bit, let it pour over a little bit, I think it's going to work out great. So obviously that has to dry, but before I did any of that, before I poured that, I started working on this. This is what I got caught up on. I had already done this side, and I was okay with it, but this side I'm so much happier with. And you can see that there's some white spots here and there. That's because I literally just sprayed it down with alcohol and hit the whole thing with scenic cement because I didn't want things blowing, the foam blowing into the water and stuff like that. So that's why that looks like that. But you can see there's a lot of layers there of things. And so I was going to just explain how I do this, like one step at a time, but not actually present it to you, not actually do it on the spot. So what I've been doing lately, and it seems to be a good like standard for all my scenery, is that I've been first spraying all the plaster and all the dirt areas with this product, which I get from my local. There's a local art supply store called Blick down the block from me, and they carry a lot of stuff, including this, which is what I use. So the cool thing about this is that it's water-based, and there's a number if you want to go ahead and order that or buy it. But the good thing about this is that it doesn't have a strong scent. Like, it's got a little bit of a scent, but it's not like that crazy stuff like Rust-Oleum. Like, when you spray that stuff, even if you spray a little bit, it stinks up the whole basement. So I'm trying to get away from Rust-Oleum, even though I like it for the tracks and stuff. But this stuff, even though it's not as strong as Rust-Oleum, it's much easier, especially when you have to do large areas, to deal with, because you don't have to stink up the entire basement. So that's what I use first. Then once that dries, I basically cover the entire area that's covered in that paint with regular Mod Podge in its pure form. I just kind of take a brush and just smear it all over the place. I don't go too thick. I don't go too thin. I don't like glob it on. What I do actually, I literally just pour it on a little bit at the high points. I pour it on, and then I take a brush and just kind of spread it out all over the place. And then while that's wet, I do the first layer with not this one, this one. I do earth first. And the reason I do earth is because it gives me that like dirt kind of undercoat, kind of darker spots, as a starting point, and it gives you a little texture. I don't do like the actual dirt. Like some people go outside and they'll pick up dirt and they'll siphon it, and that looks really good. But for me, it's just too much work, and I mean I haven't been doing it, and I'm happy with my results. And I'm also modeling summertime, so a lot of this stuff is going to be covered in green. So not a lot of dirt exposed. But if I do want to show dirt areas, I have been using grout and whatever I have on hand. Unfortunately, the dirt that I have here is very, very, very dark, and I hate the way it looks. I did that on my N-scale layer, and I hated it because it was so dark. It's almost like coffee. So then I have to lighten it up, and it's like a whole thing. So I'm like, let me just do it this way. So once I'm done with the dirt color, which is the earth from Woodland Scenics, then I go ahead and do the burnt grass as a second layer, and you can do that right away. You don't have to wait till it dries. So what I do tend to accomplish though is that when I put the earth on, I don't cover the whole thing with earth. I just very sporadically kind of spread it out, and I leave gaps and holes and exposed areas on purpose, so that when I put the burnt grass in, even though I also do it the same way, I don't try to cover everything. At least you get a combination of colors and it kind of blends in better instead of just globbing it on there and then it's like too much. So then you can still see the dirt that's spray painted under there, and you can kind of see like that. It looks like sandish, dirt, clayish, whatever. So then once that is dry, that I do have to wait until it dries. I go back and I start with the static grass. So I have an applicator, and I use, I think it's like 2 millimeter for the most part. There might be some 4 millimeter in there too mixed in. I don't get too crazy. I have a couple of, I don't know where my actual bags are, but I have a couple of different sizes, different companies. I just kind of play around with it until I get a good mix, and then I usually end up with something like this. This is just basically stuff that I had vacuumed from the scene and put back in the cup, but some of this stuff is mixed with other fibers too. So I go for like a greenish, tannish, almost like burnt look, but a little darker than the burnt grass. You can see there, it's a little brighter. And if it's too bright, I could always tone it down with the burnt grass and just put it over, and it just gives the illusion that it's darker. I have even gone as far as painting, like with an airbrush, or just mistaken. I don't know if you can see this here, but I mistakenly spray painted the same brown color that I showed you, the water-based stuff, over it, and it actually looks pretty good. So, a very, very light coat. It's just that I was trying to spray paint the seam here, and it just kind of it splashed over. So, but that actually looks pretty good. Anyway, so that's the next step. The applicator does an okay job standing the grass up. But, it's tricky with the slopes because it wants to stand it up at a 45-degree angle like this. So what I do is I take the vacuum with the nylon sock, whatever trick, and I use the vacuum to actually stand it up. So I just wait a couple of minutes, and then once it's glued enough, when you take the vacuum and you start sucking it up, it stands straight up. So, you're never going to get it 100%. As you can see, it's always going to fall down a little bit, but it's not bad. I mean, good enough for me. But the one mistake I made is that I don't like using the really long fibers. Like there's some like 12 millimeter stuff and like 10, it's really long, but I use it as like tall grass. And it doesn't look bad. Like I'll show you. This is what I did on this side. But you see how it's all flat? I hate that. It looks like a mistake. So I might vacuum that stuff up. You know, I got to figure out what to do. I'm not crazy about that look. If I do that, I might have to do it just manually, like a little bit at a time, just to make it stand straight up, and just not this much of it. I went a little crazy with this because I was experimenting. Anyways, once the static grass is completely dry, then there's like gaps and things. I fill that stuff up with the little clumps, like this. These are just the Woodland Scenic clumps. I forget what number it is, and I don't have it handy because I just cleaned up and I put everything away. So, yeah, any clumped material from Woodland Scenics will do. So I kind of, put little clusters here and there, you can see. And it's cool working with rock face because you can kind of put stuff in between the rocks and it looks really cool. I like the way that looks. In the summertime, that tends to happen a lot. Like, things just end up on the top of the rocks and stuff, and in the crevices, and it just grows. So that looks good to me. Then the thing that I like to do the most is using the polyfiber material, which Woodland Scenics makes. You don't have to use that. You can just go to like a fabric store and probably get some pillow stuffing or teddy bear stuffings, and same stuff. But what I do like about the Woodland Scenics is that you buy a bag for like $4, whatever it is, and it's painted green, like a nice tone of green, nice shade of green. So it blends in. You can see there. It blends in with the material that you put on top of it. So I basically just take that material and I stretch it out and make it really thin. You don't need a lot. I mean, that bag is probably the size of my hand. And I could probably, I've already done a layout and my friends' layouts and things, and I still have like the entire bag left because you need very, very little of it. And like the trick is to spread it out really thin and then pull it up so that you get volume, you get like height and lift. But that's all of this here, and the things that, like, what's cool about it is you can hang it over the rocks like this because it'll hold its shape. And like this, that came out really cool too. And obviously, it's right now it's wet, so you can't really tell. But once you get that stuff on there, I don't even glue it down. I just put it on the scene. Well, I guess theoretically I do glue it down, but I don't put glue down first. I just put it on there wherever I want it to be. Like, let's say this patch, I just put it on there. And then I take alcohol, I hit it with alcohol, and then I take scenic cement and I just kind of sprinkle it on top with like one of these droppers. It doesn't have to be like soaking, but enough for the material that you're going to put on top to catch. So it has a little bite to it. And then once you do that, what I do is I take the darker green stuff, which is this blended turf, and that's the color you see there. So it's just dark enough to give it a little highlight, give the scene a little lift, a little pop. And that's it. That's all it takes. And then obviously once I'm done with that, that's like the last, layer. That's what I consider like the basic scenery level for me. Then I'll go back later on. Like I'll probably add little like I said, like burnt grass and like things like sticking out and maybe tufts here and there and like whatever bushes and things things that look different. Like sometimes I'll use stuff like this, but that's more sparingly. I'll even take like this, sea sponge stuff, and just use it as like little roots and things. This stuff looks great when you put it, when you really break it up. It looks great. So, just to give it a little more if I really want to, but whatever. So that's that. And then so once I'm done, then I can go ahead and just spray the whole thing down with alcohol. I just, I buy one of these big bottles at Home Depot and just literally soak the whole thing with alcohol. And then I'll go back and with the same dropper and just kind of put the scenic cement everywhere. And obviously that stuff's going to disappear once it dries, so not worried about it. And even if you hit it, even if you get the alcohol and the Even some of the scenic cement on the scenery that's done, don't worry about it. It's going to dry. It's going to disappear. So that's what I did there. I forget. Oh, so then the other big thing that I had to do was the fascia. And the reason why I wanted the fascia in is because now I'm going to get ready to make a barrier here for the water, because I am going to use the Envirotex light just to give a little height on the water, so it looks like deep water. And then I'm going to use the GAC on top of that to blend it in. Also, the reason why I want to use the Envirotex is because I want to dye it so it looks more opaque, so you can't see through it, and that'll give the impression that this is thicker. The only thing I'm battling with right now is whether I put the Envirotex here and here, or if I just use the Envirotex for this next level here, and then make this look even deeper with the, with the Envirotex. Rather the GAC on here, and then the Envirotex and the GAC on here. But my only concern with this is that it doesn't, well, I guess it looks okay. When you put this GAC, it's crystal clear, so it actually amplifies whatever's already there. So if it looks like too much like plaster, I tried to make it rough, but sometimes you get the plaster lines and streaks, and it looks like plaster, like this right here. I guess not. I guess that looks like just dirt and roots and whatever, riverbed stuff. But I think what I'm going to do is just do the GAC over here, and then do the Envirotex and the GAC here, so you can't see through as much here. So anyways, back to the fascia. So that's why I had to cut this and make sure that I was I already had this in place. And then what I'm going to do, I keep talking about these, but I finally pull it out so I can show you, is use these old 3M, these are the transparency films that for the overhead projectors that your teachers probably used back in the day before smart boards and all that stuff. And I found a bunch of these in my school in the basement. They were just stored. They can't throw them out because they need to, I guess, have a reason to, or I don't know, they have to clear that. So I asked if I could take some, and they were like, yeah, well, please, get them out of the building. So I took a couple of boxes. I mean, this is enough probably for an eternity, just one box. It's 100 sheets in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sheet of plastic, which is thin, which is nice because you can manipulate it. I'm going to let these screws, I'm going to ease off on them, pull them back a little bit. And then I'm going to stick these in. And by the way, I've done this already, so I know it works. But anyways, when you put them in here, I'm just going to basically get it just deep enough so that it goes down maybe behind the fascia, like that much. Then once I create the whole thing, I'll have a little overlap between one and the next. It's a tiny bit. Then I'll go ahead and from the inside, I'll seal it with either a clear caulk, like a crystal clear caulk, or the same, I was using this golden product also. I'll make a nice thick barrier with this because that'll dry kind of like caulk. And then this way, when I pour the Envirotex light, it won't drip. It won't, go through. Either way, I'm going to protect the floor. I'm just going to put a cloth here or something so that if anything drips down, it gets caught. But yeah, so once, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because once that's done, I go higher than I need to, by a lot. I go this high, and that's not how much water I'm putting in. The water will probably be this high. But then once that dries, it sticks to the plastic, and you can't, it's clear. You won't see any bubbles or anything like that. It completely seals. And then I just take an X-Acto knife and I just go down to the water level and I just trim it and I get it, so that it looks perfect. And you don't even see the little seams and stuff. You won't even pick up on those. I try to get the seams so that they're on the sides. I'll put a piece of plastic here and then, go that way rather than trying to get the seam in the middle. But I've seen people use tape and other things, but I don't know. This stuff works for me, so that's what I'm using. Also, I've been experimenting with how to make my waterfalls. I basically made a small section of this entire scene on a piece of foam. I covered it with plaster, like basically the same thing I did here, I did on the foam, just to test some of the products are out. And so I tried making it just with this. Just put like a glob of it, and I put a little white paint in it. I mixed it in, and then just took a brush and just kind of worked it up this way. And it created streaks. And that looked okay, but it needed like a little more texture. So then I went ahead and took some toilet paper, like 1-ply toilet paper, and wet it down, and I put it in there, and I hit it with this one a little bit, and then just kind of wrinkled it up and shaped it, and that seems to work. That looked much better. So I think that's going to be like the primary method of making the waterfalls, like the water spilling over. And then the same tissue paper, what I did is I took it and I put it sideways along the ripple, like the I guess the contact point of the water, and it looks like foam, like splashing from the water. So that actually looked really good too. I'll show it to you on the next video. It's upstairs, but I'll get it on the next video. So that's kind of like what I'm working on, and that's what the scene is all about. Right now, that's all I'm doing is just trying to get the scenery done so I can put the water down, and then I can put the track down. I'm in a little bit of a rush, and I shouldn't rush through these things, but I am in a little bit of a rush because I have some guys coming over on the 28th, and that would be nice if this was done already, or at least the track was down so we can run trains over them. But realistically, I don't think the water is going to be able to be poured, and even if it is, it's going to take a couple of days to dry, and I don't want to be running trains over it because you always get things that fall down, dust and dirt and things from the vibrations. So I'd rather not even touch it for a couple of days. And that's base. This I also did. I wanted to have some kind of like runoff from. I'm gonna put a pipe here, some kind of drainage like that sticks up like this and curls down from whatever this is. And that'll be like, water just going down into the river, polluting. So I did that. I'm going to lighten it up, though. It's a little too dark, so I'm going to make it like a little grayer looking and more worn out. And I don't know if I want it dry looking or if I want it wet looking. So if I want it wet, I'm just going to use this gack and just kind of, make it look like there's water running down. For that. So obviously I gotta finish this off first before I do anything else with the water because I don't want the scenic stuff to fall into the water. So once this is completely sealed and I fix this and whatever, then I'll be able to pour the water. I also have to fill these gaps in with plaster, which I already did on this side. So that looks good. And that was easy. That's not a big deal. But I did add this wall here to kind of like make it look like it continues, kind of like a side wall there. I had to paint it, obviously. It's still just plaster. So I'll make it look like that. I'll match it. And the concrete color that I use for that is this stuff. I covered the number with the paint by mistake, so I don't know what it is, but it's just like their regular concrete color. So besides that, I also doing a lot. I glued this down. I hooked up the wires, the feeders. I also added a block because I want this lead to have its own detection because I have a signal here and I want dispatcher to be able to see this block as the train is approaching on its way out. And then I also had to add a block for this turnout. Oh, by the way, I had to replace this turnout because the other one was not working correctly. So I did that too. I added a block for this. I added the tortoise machine underneath, which was a real pain in the butt. And I obviously wired it up. I soldered the frog rails so that there's no loss of power there. And then I cut my gaps. So everything's working correctly. I also updated my panel to reflect all that. I had to move this whole thing up so that I can get signals. See here? get my signals in and all that stuff. So this entire team track is, I had to lift it up another level. But now you can see that locomotive that's sitting on the lead, now it's getting picked up by the block detection. I also added this tortoise for the turnout that is controlled to let me into the Whitehall yard. I also added a block for that, another detection block, because with cats you have to isolate every single turnout that's on the main line. Otherwise, the labels won't carry through correctly. It'll show like you're going two ways instead of just one way or the other way. So did that. And obviously I had to run power from the SE8Cs to control these tortoise machines, that one and this one. So that was like a whole another run that I had to go, around through into the peninsula and into my, control panel in there, which I call the hole. But that's like kind of like central for everything. And I feel like I did a few more things, but I can't remember right now. The big thing I did was that I cleaned the entire track, like everything by hand. I went with a rag and alcohol and just cleaned everything nice and I got everything off the track. So because it's been sitting for so many weeks that I ran my finger through it and it was just black. So sometimes what I feel is that you can clean your track, but if you don't run trains over them often, it kind of gets dirty really quick. So it's better to just run your trains. So I've been running as much as I can in the last couple of days. Just even while I'm working, I'll just run trains. Another thing I did is I added this signal, and I put it here because it used to be here. But by adding all this stuff here, I had to, this is a very blind spot. So I wanted to make it before the road so that in case, a train's coming and this is not available, right? There's a conflict here for whatever, which is not going to happen often, but you could at least see the signal and the train will stop before the roadway. So that's another thing that I did. I also fixed the gates because they were being a little wonky, especially the back one there. Was not behaving correctly, so I had to switch some things around, the wire and whatever. So I fixed that. I also painted and weathered the track that's going to go over the river, this new section that I'm working on. So that was a little time consuming, but I got it done. So yeah, I've been busy. I've been doing a lot. What else did I do? Well, I added this signal, as you can see here. So it's, so you exit the lead into the main line. And then I cleaned up. I cleaned up the basement as much as I could because it was just chaos over here, especially this area here. I was doing so much work. So, things are coming along nicely, and I'll keep making videos. But like I said, I'm not going to make them very sophisticated. I'm not going to. The level of editing is going to be very low. It's just going to basically be whatever I catch on the phone. That's what it's going to be. All right, so that'll be it for this. I'll keep updating you guys. Thanks for watching.